Again, third time is hopefully the charm, and if this one doesn't work, then unfortunately we might just have to call it wraps for the night. How you doing, everybody? First chiming in live on a replay. We're going to act like the past half hour just hasn't happened. This is surely the first time that we're trying to attempt and go live today, right? Yes, you're with me? Awesome. Okay. This is a very important show and a very important conversation I want to have tonight, and I really do not want to push aside the potential of what could be had here and what is not a typical post-game show, but what is really going to be a full-on New York Metropolitan live caller event session here for you Mets fans to have a chance to have your voices heard, to ask questions, to have them answered from me, of course, too, on what's going on with the Mets. Why are they 4 games below 500? Why did they get blown out today 10-5 to the Phillies and have lost 3 consecutive games to them there in this 4-game set? 2 games at home, 2 games away. We are going to do our absolute best to get this live show going. We have had significant lagging problems prior, and I do apologize in advance if we have lagging problems once again here in the live show. If you're watching here on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button as your first way in. We're the largest Mets platform, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY, and thanks to all you amazing Mets fans for that. So, of course, thank you guys as always, and shout out all my live viewers on Twitter. Hit that like, that follow button, that retweet button, but know that I'll only be interacting per usual with our live viewers here on YouTube. Now, I know to many of you guys are going to probably hear a lot of repetition if you guys were just watching the past 20-30 minutes when unfortunately I had to abruptly end the live show. I'm already seeing that I may have a slight lag, so hopefully it isn't terrible. And again, just let me know, guys, as the show goes on. For me, the most important thing is that you guys hear the audio okay, especially when I take your live calls. And as we're going to get into live callers here in just the next 10 minutes or so, because before that, I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown of what transpired in this ball game, innings 1 through 9, along with all the latest updates on the Mets and how even Steve Cohen himself might just be a little fed up with the club, to say the least, based on a recent tweet that has now since been deleted by the Mets owner himself. We'll get into all that, but of course, smash those buttons, folks. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Really do appreciate it, and know that once we take the live callers, all you have to do for your chance to, of course, be entered into a live call is to click the link I'll have available for you guys shortly in the live chat, and from there, when you enter, you're going to put the same name that you have here on YouTube, so that way I know who you are. 2, please be respectful. Trust me when I say, guys, that it's not going to bode well for you if you go out of here to talk, about stuff that's not relevant to the Mets and could be inappropriate, of course, to fellow viewers. Just be smart, of course, know what you're doing as you head into this, and more than anything, try to, of course, be a little short-winded with whatever you have to say. I want to take as many live callers as possible tonight, so I'm only going to have a couple minute interval for each caller. So if you guys say go past more than, what we're getting to 3-4 minutes and you're really dragging something, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you and go to the next live caller. Not that I don't want to hear what you have to say, but I really want to make a point of emphasis that we can take as many callers as possible, and that way this is digestible for all the viewers, especially with Mets fans being as fed up as they are right now after losing in an embarrassing fashion, to say the least, by a final score of 10-3, everybody. I mean, seriously, outside of Mark Vientos and him being brilliant per usual as soon as he's called up, there are very little positive takeaways from today's game, which the Mets faltered, of course, and there are a lot of things I have to say on this. There are a lot of key updates because as we just did our own little vent session yesterday, everybody, we talked about how the Mets need to make changes, and since then, the Mets have made a lot of changes. They have since DFA'd Joey Wendell, they have called up Mark Vientos, they have sent down Jose Butto, who can return in 10 days or so, unless a player is put on the injured list, then he could be the transaction move. Butto was sent down so the Mets can see what they have in Joey Lucchesi today. I think they've seen enough for the most part, and Tyler McGill will be activating, getting a start this Sunday or Monday for the Metropolitans when Butto would have been lined up for at minimum than his next start or two. So that's the latest on that front among the starters, but among relievers, Drew Smith unfortunately felt a pinch as he was ramping up and getting ready to go to be back with the Mets, activate off the injury list. So the Mets are being very cautious with him, and he will return to the Mets pen more than likely this week. We just don't know exactly when yet. Brooks Raley, unfortunate news, has been shut down for 2 weeks with a UCL strain. So unfortunately, that elbow inflammation is a bigger deal than what maybe Brooks Raley and others initially believed. And now he's just trying to avoid a season-ending surgery with that elbow. So hopefully 2 weeks of nothing happening, no ramp up, that will get the elbow inflammation down where he wants it to be, and then he can begin the slow roll, what is going to be a tall task to get the Mets, not the Mets, but get Raley where he wants to be health-wise to ultimately return to the Mets and this bullpen sometime this season. Outside of that, just to double check and make sure I didn't miss anything else, Let's see here, folks. We talked about also Brett Beatty, if I didn't mention Ray, because again, a lot of this is repetition, so I do apologize if you chime in my live show just a half hour ago or so. But if you guys didn't, especially Brett Beatty is now starting to take reps at second and shortstop pregame for the Mets now, knowing that Joey Wendell's no longer on the roster. They have no true utility man, and with the Mets wanting to put in efforts to not only platoon Beatty and Vientos there at third base based on matchups, but also want to give Beatty more at bat still. Even, yes, he has been laboring plenty. The Mets still want to see what they had there, however, and it makes a lot of sense to have him as a utility option at times, especially if Jeff McNeil's having a terrible game, which he has done plenty so far this season. Basically, it's the battle of mid-off there at second base. Who's going to prevail, Jeff McNeil or Mr. Brett Beatty? We'll find out. And I love Brett, and I don't have any personal ill will with Jeff, but both of them have struggled plenty this season for, at times, some of the same reasons on the offensive end for sure, but on the defensive end, Beatty has definitely been an absolute stud at the hot corner. Now, Vientos, of course, doesn't have the defensive upside, will be commanding that position for the times JD Martinez gets to start at DH. And while JD Martinez did have a home run to cut the deficit to like 40 points, doing his best Chris Paul impression, of course, at that point, it made it a 10-3 ball game later on this one. This Mets lineup, even after significant configurations, it was Starling Marte being put down in the lineup. Pete Alonso moving all the way up to the 2-hole. Francisco Lindor moving down one to the 3-hole. Even then, with that configuration, the Mets, again, had very little offense to show today. It was sporadic, and it showed up once again when it was too little, too late. So we're going to get into innings 1 through 9, what transpired here with the Mets and the Phillies. I'm going to speed run this thing because then I want to get to your live callers. Again, I have such a heavy emphasis that I want this to just be a live call-in vent show, especially on a night where, again, the Mets did not only have it, but they're 4 games below 500. And now you even have Mets owner himself, Steve Cohen, going out of his way to make some remarks that maybe he unfortunately regretted right away. And this is not to put, Steve Cohen on blast. Love Steve. Hopefully he's not going to take offense to this. But, I think we're all taking offense to this Mets team right now, rightfully so. And as you see here, there was a report earlier, not even a report, just an article from, a Mets writer, Mac here, talking about how the Mets need to blow it up. And in response to that, this was earlier on Twitter, Steve Cohen says as follows, all in the future, not much that we can do until the trade deadline. No lies were said there. Steve still felt the need to delete that tweet, and my understanding that is he probably deleted the tweet right away because Mets fans are going to overthink and think, okay, everyone's getting traded right away, it's a complete blow up. When in no, what this means is, yes, changes will be made by the trade deadline. The Mets are going to part ways with some players, and the Mets are going to be adding some players. It's just a matter of, will they be full sellers? Will they be more buyers than sellers? Because I do even foresee in a world where the Mets are buyers by the deadline, I do anticipate that they will part ways with some guys currently on the roster beyond just prospects, right? There is some dead weight that they would love to shed if humanly possible, and they may have the opportunity to do that based on what is out there by time we get to the trade deadline. So a lot to unpack there, but more importantly, let's unpack this ball game inning by inning so that way I can get on to having you live callers on here, folks. And one more thing, just so you guys know, to have the Mets fan live callers on, if you are a live caller of a different team, while I appreciate the support and everything, know that I'm going to be quick to just take you off the call because I just want this to be, again, a section for Mets fans and Mets fans only, specifically in a night like this. So do not take offense to it. Just read the room a bit, and if you still go out of your way to call in, that's fine. Just know that I'm just going to kick you right away and let that be that. But I appreciate the view, no less. I will take that every day of the week. But let's break down the ballgame, folks. What transpired in another godforsaken shit show you call New York Metropolitan Baseball? Let's break it down with me. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as your first chime in. And people watching on replay, let me know your biggest takeaway from another blowout, unfortunate loss for the Mets. This time, 10-5 is your final in the comments down below. And if you guys would love to call in, and for your chance to call in, know that we will be doing plenty more live callers in the future here on WardyNYM. So trust me when I say you will not be missing out. There will be plenty more opportunities to make this happen. And tonight just feels like the perfect night. It's been long overdue. We're 4 games below 500. It's doom and gloom in Mets land. Let's have ourselves a discussion that only us Mets fans can relate with and understand and feel for each other. And appreciate all the donations as well from the previous live stream. Thank you guys so much for that. Greatly appreciate it. In the top of the first, though, we see Mr. Brandon Nimmo would reach on a error. Lindor with the hit by pitch. JD Martinez with the fielder's choice. And then with 2 outs, Marky Vientos, who gets the start at third base today, the hot corner, rips a 2-out RBI double off of the Southpaw Ranger. Suarez gets in on the hands. Not a problem. Goes all the way to the wall. That drives in a run. The Mets take an early 1-0 lead. And now Mark Vientos, who has started in now 2 games for the Mets, he has played in 4. 3 of those 4 games, he has had a hit in his first at-bat. Very impressive stuff there for Mark Vientos. He's making the most of the opportunities given to him at the moment. In the bottom of the first, with 2 outs, Joey Lucchesi again gets the start today for the Mets. The spot start, because who in God's name, and I'm sorry, we all agree on this, who wants Adrian Hauser ever starting a game for the Mets? I mean, we saw Adrian Hauser pitch later on this ball game, and he was the worst pitcher. And that's saying a lot considering Joey Lucchesi gave up 5 earned runs today. So we'll get into that in a second, though. We see there with 2 outs, Harper with an opposite field home run. Lefty-lefty action there. Lefty-lefty killer there is Harper going oppo. Ties the ball game 1-1. In the second, Bader with a single. McNeil with a fielder's choice. Nothing else to show there. In the bottom of the second, Joey Lucchesi with a 1-2-3 inning. Also, of course, shout out to my amazing sponsors, BetUS and SoRareMLB. Before we get on to the live callers, you guys will be hearing from one of our amazing sponsors. And then it's going to be a call-in show for the rest of the time. And again, I want to take as many live callers as possible, so once more, do not be long-winded when we get there, please. I want to take plenty. I have no problem with this being north of around an hour live show today where I'm answering your questions, comments, concerns, or just listening to whatever you want to vent here in Metsland because you're very fed up with the current status of the team, justifiably and rightfully so. Hopping back into this one, however, BetUS, SoRareMLB, click the links down below in case you haven't already, folks, for all your sports betting and, of course, fantasy baseball needs. But as we see there, Joey Lucchesi with a 1-2-3 inning back thanks to Alonso with a beautiful diving stop there, getting all dirtied up there at first base, as he always does, it feels like. Pete Alonso with a nice snag there as we then get to the top of the third. Speaking of the devil, Alonso with a double, and this time he gets to third base on a throwing error. Lindor with a walk. He would then steal second base. Mets again have themselves in position with scoring position, cannot convert there. Marte with the walk. Or maybe I was wrong. Maybe the Mets did score at least 1 run there. Either way, still though, the Mets not getting much offensive production until it's too little too late in this one. And again, appreciate everyone chiming in live on a replay. Continue to let me know if the audio and the video quality is okay to your liking, and if it isn't, but it's not lagging, then I don't know what else to tell you. I apologize. It is what it is, right? But let me minimize that so you guys can watch more of the highlights in the meantime. The few Mets highlights that we had tonight, and it's 10-5 loss. But advancing further here now as we get on to the bottom of the third, Schwarber with the single. That's all she wrote there. Then Lucchesi has a clean inning in the fourth. In the fifth, Starling Marte throws out Castellanos, trying to leg a single into a double. Imagine running on Starling Marte. Silly, silly, silly. Nonsense. Then we get on to the next half inning, and Sosa with a walk. Christian Pache with a walk. Rojas with a sac bunt, fielder's choice. Everyone's safe. Bases loaded, no outs for Joey Fuego. And this is where he goes to die, unfortunately. This is what leads him to his final line today. Cannot get out of the fifth inning without giving up, unfortunately, a RBI walk to Kyle Schwarber, an RBI single to JT Realmuto, and a 2-run double to Bryce Harper. Bryce, of course, had a fantastic night against Joey Lucchesi and was a triple shy of triple shy of, well, I don't know why I'm blanking so much right now. When you get a triple, when you get a single, when you get a double, when you get a home run, this cycle, my goodness gracious. I mean, I'm lagging just as much as my freaking previous stream did. No less, as we break down more, the Mets are down 5-1 or 5-2 at this point through 5. On the top of the 6, McNeil hurts his knee bad on a foul ball, but he stays in the game. Just fouled it right off that thing, and that did not feel good, unfortunately. And the bottom of 6, Bryson Stott with a hit by pitch. Sosa with the single. Pache with an RBI ground out. Vientos would bobble the ball, but he would still get the out there at first, but could not turn the double play because of it. McNeil then with a throwing error after a nice diving stop, unfortunately, then makes it a 7-2 ball game. As we get to the top of the 7th, Nito with a single, Nimmo with a walk, Alonso then with the double play after it was challenged, and the Mets do nothing there. In the bottom of the 7th, everyone's favorite pitcher, cue the sarcasm, Adrian Hauser comes in. He gives up a single to Harper. He gives up a single to Bohm. Lindor has an error which allows a run to score, unfortunately, and everyone's safe. Lindor, again, like many other guys, was just bobbling balls today. It was very slippery. It was not a good weather conditions for either team today, but the Phillies took advantage of those little hiccups the way that the Mets did anything but. An RBI sac fly then would make it 9-2, and then an infield RBI single from some schmuck on Philly made it 10-2. From there, in the top of the 8th, then JD Martinez with the home run, and I joked about the Chris Paul meme, how, he lowers a deficit to like 30 or 40 points. It's a 10-3 ball game at that point. McNeil then with an RBI double, only because it was a drop ball and centered by Rojas, but they do not call it an error because it was a tough play to get. Nito with an RBI single makes it 10-5, and that is your ball game, folks. The Mets again lose by a final score of 10-5, another game with it where it was an embarrassing fashion, and the Mets now are getting absolutely embarrassed against a Phillies team that they have had the upper hand on for quite a period of time. We're going back to easily the past 2.5, 3 seasons now, where the Mets have always played great, entertaining baseball against the Phillies, even when they aren't a great team otherwise. They've always had good matchups against them and have had a lot of heroic wins in recent years. Not the case so far this season. This Phillies team has been on an absolute heater, and even while they haven't played their best baseball, it hasn't stopped them from defeating a depleted Mets that just have no... When I say depleted, I don't mean depleted in the sense of they have a lot of guys injured. I say depleted in the sense that this offense has been lifeless. The inconsistencies have been absolutely stagnant. The Mets are perfect at being consistently inconsistent, and if they're consistent with anything, is their lack of consistent run prevention, right? Give the credit where credit's due. The Mets know how to absolutely keep themselves in games at times, excluding the blowout today, and still losing, with a 2-run deficit or so, a 2-1 or a top 3-run deficit. Excluding today's outing, this has been their commonality for the past 3 weeks or so. So, as we take a quick look, folks, at the pitching stats, we'll just breeze by this here for a second, then get to your live callers. And shout out, as always, to my man Isaac Rothman with a pitching analysis, because he's got plenty for me. And Isaac does a great job in telling me the little things that maybe the eye test didn't pick up on in a night like this, where you're more frustrated on just wanting to rant after the game than even talking about the game itself. But Lucchesi, again with the Arsenal today, he basically throws just 2 pitches that we know. It's a sinker 63% of the time. The curve, of course, that we all know, Mr. Joey Fuego, 29% of the time, and just a measly 7% of the time was the cutter. And again, none of them are great. That's the problem with Lucchesi as well that we saw there. He's a soft tosser. He's trying to induce ground ball outs, similar to Jose Quintana and even Hauser, who still touches 95 on the gun. They just don't do a quality rate of doing it. And if you do not have pinpoint accuracy with their pitches, if you hang anything, MLB batters are going to eat this up for breakfast. And that, in essence, is what happened to Giulio Lucchesi at times today. And along with not having a true command of the strike zone. I mean, he was good, outside of that 5th inning for the most part, but that one was such a bugaboo that for a Mets team, the Mets, up until tonight's game, haven't scored at least 5 runs in a ball game in literally over a week. The last time they did it was May 7th when they won 7-5 or so against the St. Louis Cardinals. Apologies in advance if you see a cat walk right across here. I have a cat to my right that is trying to figure out what she wants to do. What are you going to do, girl? What are you going to do? I don't know what she wants to do. Either way, we're going to continue to advance with this one. And overall, not too pleased with Joey Fuego today, but not going to beat up on him too much in a spot start. We know this guy is not going to be a mainstay in the Mets rotation, obviously. He's just here for the time being. So that's really all I need to say on Giulio Lucchesi right now. Unfortunate that the Mets couldn't get more than what they got out of him tonight, but at the same time, how much of a difference really would have made with this team? The offense, would that have been sparked later on the ball game if they weren't losing the way that they were losing? We'll never know. It is what it is. But as we get on to the bullpen, Hartwig and Hauser, Hartwig, is another sinker sweeper guy in this David Stearns bullpen that we know. He didn't really make any bad pitches today. He's just hurt by some soft contact and some bad fielding. And again, didn't go in his manner. Only allowed 1 earned run there in that inning. Hartwig is only up for the time being. Will probably be sent down once Drew Smith is activated, which could be as soon as tomorrow. And Adrian Hauser, literally shout out to my man Isaac in the notes. He said he told me he was going to do this, but it's still hilarious to me. He says, I don't really want to talk about Hauser, but I will say that he's a good option when you're down by 8. He's a good option when you're down by 8 and you have no intention in trying to rally back in a ball game. He's a terrible option if you're down by 8 and then score multiple runs the next half inning or so. Adrian Hauser, that is in fact him. On the hitting side, this is what you got from the Mets today. Again, a whole lot of nothing burgers, whole lot of frustration on this one, to say the least. You had Brandon Nimmo, again, another over. Brandon, I'm not going to gripe much of. Brandon, of course, has been fantastic for the Mets, all things considered this season. And while, yes, he hasn't hit to the contact that we have probably seen in recent years with Brandon, the power has been there, and he's still been a very productive player in more ways than one. But Brandon Nimmo is now at a 215 average and a 757 OPS on the season. Pete Alonso, a 225 average, a 756 OPS. We see Francisco Lindor, 200 average. Mendoza line, 652 OPS. JD Martinez, 295 average with a 797 OPS. JDM with the home run, the 2 hits today. Love to see that. Mark Vientos with a 455 average and a 1,000 and just under 300 OPS. We love that. Sterling Marte with another over, 255 average, 671 OPS. Harrison Bader, 1 for 4 today with a 265 average, a 628 OPS. Jeff McNeil, 236 average, 626 OPS. Tomas Nido with 2 hits today. We love Nido Kane on this channel. We are Nido stans, especially with him being the backup to Francisco Alvarez. Get Omar Narvaez off my team. David Stearns listened when I tweeted a day and a half ago, get Joey Wendell off my team. They DFA Joey Wendell the next day. Now the same applies once Francisco Alvarez returns. Get Omar Narvaez off my team. Eat his $8 million. It doesn't matter. Steve Cohen can handle it. He's handled it with James McCann. He can handle it again with another bum at the backstop. I want Nido Kane as my backup catcher going forward, and I think everyone should feel the same way. Joey Lucchesi, we talked about him. Grant Hartwig, Adrian Hauser, that's all she wrote. Mets were out hit by the Phillies by 1 measly hit today. Phillies with a 349 expected batting average to 272 there of the Metropolitans now, folks. And before we get on to breaking down more here in the ball game, and as I'm about to take your live callers, everybody, now let's take a quick word here with our amazing sponsor on the channel, with our great friends at Sorare MLB. Because in case you guys and gals don't know Sorare MLB is the best MLB fantasy game out there. And we just gave away a bunch of Mets tickets on the channel. I know you probably don't want Mets tickets right now, but we did just give away a bunch of them to any games you want to go to this season on the channel, all for just signing up to Sorare MLB, clicking the link down below, and joining a free tournament. If you guys like MLB The Show and MLB Fantasy, combine those two bad boys together, and I have Sorare MLB for you. It's awesome because you can card collect with virtual cards. So if you love being your own GM, building your own roster, again, this is the game for you. You build your roster with these cards, and then you enter weekly tournaments on Mondays and Fridays. And how you do in these said tournaments is based on how the players perform in real life. So if you guys have guys balling out right now, like if you had Bryce Harper on your team, you had yourself a nice day with them. So after when these tournaments are done, if you say do well in these tournaments based on these players' performances, you win cash prizes, of course, hundreds if not thousands of dollars. You can win Mets ticket prizes, in which we did on the channel. We'll be doing plenty going forward. Jersey prizes, you name it. Again, a boatload of different options, which is awesome with our great friends at Sorare MLB. So check them out by clicking the link down below in the description, as always, so you can play against me. And of course, you can buy, sell, and trade these unique virtual cards that, again, depending on the rarity, you can actually sell for some really significant dollars too. So there's incentive behind growing your team and building as you're playing the game throughout the season. And as you guys can currently see, this is the roster I'm rocking right now in the latest tournament. I'm in the Common All-Star Tournament at the moment. If you just heard a big thump, that was because a cat just jumped, I believe. We're going to have Luis Severino as one of my starters. Edwin Diaz is in there as well. They got Brett Beatty there, in which we don't know how much playing time Brett Beatty's going to get, but we'll find out. Gunnar Henderson, love me some Gunnar Henderson. Brandon Nimmo, Adley Rutschman, love me some Adley, and the man that should have never left Queens, but Brody Van Wagen and the Wolpons can go eat. I'm not even going to say it. You guys know how I feel. Zach Wheeler with the Philadelphia Phillies, of course. Love me some him. These are probable pitchers. That's the PP. Both of them are going to be starting this week during these tournaments, and all these guys are expected to play, so we'll see how they do. But again, guys and gals, good luck to you all signing up with our great friends at Sorare MLB. But now let's get down to business. Let's break down these calls, okay? All right, also apologies for the little extra running there on my end. I realized I had that running longer than I wanted to. Now I'm going to start to take your live calls. So everybody, again, for people in the back, to enter the live call, all you're going to need to do is shortly click the link I'm going to have pinned in the live chat here. I'm going to take upwards of hopefully around 10 callers. Again, I want to keep it fairly short though. So again, guys, if you get long-winded with your call, please know that I am going to be going on to the next caller. Not that I don't want to interact or hear what you have to say, but we're just tight on time. I want to take advantage of this and make sure that my replay viewers enjoy this as well. I don't just have a schmuck come up here and talk 10 minutes about something completely irrelevant to the Mets. So be relevant with what's going on with the team right now. If you have any specific questions, have them ready. You can ask one or two especially. And if you just want to vent about the Mets, let me know maybe your biggest takeaway from tonight's loss or the current status of the team. If you guys can try to narrow that down in just a couple minutes for me so I have proper time to respond and go on to the next, that would be fantastic. Thank you all so much in advance. And now let me get the invite link for you all. It's going to be right here in the chat. Okay, folks, the stream link is live. You guys can all click that as we speak. And again, for my replay viewers, if you guys would like to chime in and have your answers called, you can calls answered. You can certainly do that next time we're live doing a call-in show. So just some incentive to make sure you chime into the live show, everybody. And we're halfway already to 100 likes. Thank you so much for that. Greatly appreciate it. And again, guys, once more, when you call into the show, make sure you use the same handle you use on YouTube so I know who you are. Secondly, of course, make sure you have your questions or comments ready. And thirdly, just make sure you be respectful. Please do not call in and say anything that you don't want your fellow peers to hear, because that's just an easy way to get the boot. And I don't get why you got to act like that. It's so easy to just be a better Mets fan than that, but you'd be surprised with how some schmucks act. So we're going to get them rolling in here in a minute. I already see multiple people coming in. How's it going, Mets? Alan and Alan. I see two different Allens in here. Hope you guys are doing great. We're going to get to your callers here in a second, everybody. And let me make sure everything is still set up there in the chat before I start taking them. Okay, we're good on that one, everybody. I appreciate it. How many cats? They're not even my cats. They're my girls. We got two right now. One of them is absolutely adorable. The other one's cute, but I have a favoritism. I do. And she knows which one that is. I did talk about Cohen's tweet a little bit, yes, and we can emphasize that a bit more here when taking these live callers, as long as that's part of the conversation. All right, we already got 6+ people lined up to, of course, ask some questions and get some call-ins. So let's get on to our first caller, Mets 2128. Do you hear me, my friend?
Loud and clear, Wardy.
Okay, let's see here. Let me make sure your audio's coming in. Okay, talk for me.
Okay. I'm just going to be blunt. If the New York Mets are going to survive, in my view, there is one person who I view as the cancer that they need to cut. And that is Jeremy Barnes. This halfwit has no regard or for the concept of plate discipline. Every time he tells these guys to get at the plate, he tells them to just go after it with reckless abandon instead of taking Chavez's approach of doing it with patience, timing, and focus, knowing when to stack the count instead of swinging at every damn first pitch.
I'm not a fan of first pitches either. And I got one quick question for you, my friend, before we get on to the next live caller. So you're not a Jeremy Barnes fan at all. My question is, are you in favor or against the Mets then having basically these co-hitting coaches between himself and Chavez?
I've been vehemently against this. I was against promoting Barnes to the bench coach and having this idiot run the hitting core last year. And I'm against having a duo basically bickering with each other this year.
Okay. Yes, I definitely feel you on that one. And it's interesting because not every team has co-hitting coaches the way that the Mets do, one. And secondly, they also have had ailments where I don't know exactly who to blame here more than not, because you bring up fair points on Barnes. He has been a frustration going back to last season. But I also have a frustration level to a degree with Eric Chavez. And Mets 21-28, we're going to get to our next callers. But thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate that. I'm going to expand on that here in a second, though, because the one thing I've noticed is Eric Chavez in 2022, when he was the Mets' main hitting coach, what I noticed right away was that the Mets were playing small ball. They thrived off of small ball. And when the Mets, unfortunately, were corrected, when opposing teams realized what their playbook was, they had really no proper counter on how to handle this in a season where they won 101 games in 2022. Now, as we get to 2023, with all these lofty expectations, you move Chavez to the bench and you have Barnes as your main hitting coach. And the Mets, of course, labored plenty throughout the entire season. If you were not named Tommy Pham, you weren't doing too much on the offensive end. And that was a major problem, right? So now we get to this co-hitting coach between Chavez and Barnes. I think we can all universally agree it isn't getting the job done. And you have to wonder how much more of a leash it's going to have, because let's not forget, Chavez and Barnes are not under the regime of David Stearns. These are all hires under Billy Epler. Barnes, I'm trying to make sure he was. I could even argue that Barnes was here prior to Epler. He may have been here during the Zach Scott era. However, I do not want to be quoted on that because I could be wrong. But that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one to say the least. But yes, I think moral of the story, the Mets maybe could use a shakeup on the coaching staff end. And the first thing you have to look for is not necessarily the pitching, even though, of course, you're frustrated with the walks, you're frustrated with the stolen bases. but most importantly, the inconsistency with the offense. Something has to give. You can only blame the players so much when they're actively being blamed every day. Do we now reach a point where we say, okay, it is now time to turn on the coaches? Fair question. And I certainly appreciate everyone again for calling in. We got a lot of callers to get to, folks. We got Alan, we got AZ, Emerson, Dylan, Scott. We're going to get to all you guys. All right, Alan Gonzalez, my man, how are you?
Hey, Wardy. What's up? Everything is okay. My opinion is the gripes are coming from Narvaez and this guy, McNeil.
Let me hear it.
It's so frustrating. I wanted them to do well, but Narvaez has been trash. I'd rather eat his contract like McNeil. McNeil's also a dying breed. He's no longer like the contact hitter he was. He's now a slap hitter. I mean, we need consistency. If we want to get to be buyers. Sell some, buy some. And when that happens.
Yes, I agree with I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. I think it's pretty simple. I think you're really relaying what I've been saying lately with the slap hitters, and especially with Omar Narvaez. Is there anything you want to add outside the fact that he just doesn't do anything to the level that he should be doing, being paid $8 million?
Yeah, eat it. Just eat it.
Just eat it. Yeah, I mean, simple and to the point.
I believe if we do all this, we could be a third seed, or no, the third wild card or the second wild card if we follow this strategy.
Yeah, I love that, Alan. Thank you so much for calling in, my friend. I appreciate it greatly. And Alan says it, you know what? I don't want Jeff McNeil and I don't want Omar Narvaez on my team. My question, everyone watching the show live and for people watching on replay, let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you want both Omar Narvaez and Jeff McNeil off your squad? If you do, make sure to let me know here in the chat. Greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Where do you confront this guy and be the same? It's not the same dude. It is not. Two different people. I appreciate them both, though, for calling in. Thank you so much again, Alan. Now let's get on to the other Alan here in the chat. Actually, just give me 1 second, everybody. My contact is bugging up like a mofo right now. Nothing's going right on the stream today, but it means I'm a Mets fan because nothing went right in Mets land today. Alan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Wardy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. What you got for me, brother?
I can't believe this is the same team that came back 8-7 a few years ago. They had a four freaking pitches they took in the 9th inning, and oh my God, that was so frustrating. Why would you fly out on the first pitch? Oh my God, learn to take a damn pitch. These coaches are wrecking the team because our guys, when they're on, they are on. Like when the season started, I was really worried about the bullpen, really worried about our ERA, and we're like, doing pretty well on the NL, but our hitting is garbage. Total dog doo-doo. And that's all I got to say before I say something I'll regret.
Self-awareness is a very important thing, Alan. I appreciate that. Thank you for calling in, my man. I mean, you're saying what we're all thinking, brother. So you try to have a good rest of your night, okay?
Yeah, man. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby. Appreciate that. That's the perfect call right there. It's short and sweet. Why are you swinging first pitch? I don't understand it. And the simple response to this is, yes, it is innate in all major league hitters to swing first pitch when they feel that they have a pitch to rip. That is 100% true. But what is also 100% true is that this is the same Mets offense that cannot hit a lick consistently for a year and a half, north of 2 years now. So miss me with the bullshit that, it's part of the game that we always do this. No, because more often than not, I guarantee if you pull up the stats right now and find what the Mets, not necessarily record, but their stats from their batters when swinging first pitch, actually getting contact, actually getting a single, double, let alone a home run, is not nearly as good as what you're hoping for the guys doing it as often as they do. So yes, I agree with you completely, especially when you have a lifeless offense and say it's a tight game, especially in the 9th inning. How many times did we see Lindor pop it up first pitch? Alonso, pop it up first pitch. I mean, what are we doing? I agree with you completely on that. It never hurts to take your pitches. I promise you. Even if you're going to get a meatball right down the pipe, I'd rather you take that meatball, especially if you're not used to the pitcher you're facing, because while that thing could come in looking great, if you're, again, not to all rag on Lindor here right now, but I just think of when he had that 0 for 5 game, you cannot justify being 0 for 4 going up there with multiple guys on base, just needing a hit to either tie the game or keep the Mets in it offensively, and your first pitch swinging for a pop-up. Like, what are we doing here? You know, you weren't locked in all game. Why should I believe that your first pitch swing is going to be amount to success right now? It's not going to. It's going to build to a greater frustration because you're going to get out more often than not. 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what you're going to do. The Mets have yet to prove us otherwise. We are saying what we are seeing, everybody. All right, now let's get on to our next caller. We have AZ, then we got Emerson, Dylan, Brendan, Priest on the plane. You guys are in order, so just in case you guys are wondering where you stand, we'll begin your calls soon. AZ, who's a longtime caller, a longtime friend of the channel, is his time to shine. He's really ramping up. He's getting ready to say everything he wants to say. He knows he doesn't have too much time to say it, so he's going to let it rip. Let me hear it.
Heads need to roll. Heads need to roll. McNeil needs to go. Narvaez needs to go. I never seen a team that can be so anti-clutch. It's unbelievable. It frustrates me to no end. And
me too.
Like, the walks are non-existent. You cannot put the ball in play. Something needs to change here.
Something needs to change. What do you think the change should be? What is the one thing that you think is the most important thing for the Mets to do right now?
I think it's time to overhaul the coaching staff again.
Okay.
Don't fire Mendoza. It's too early to find out what he is right now. From what I've seen, he can be that good manager. I said this before. He can be the next Kevin Cash if we wanted to. But we need a better coaching staff around him.
Right. You think the Mets maybe made a mistake by adopting as many previous coaches from the last regime as they did?
Exactly.
Okay.
The Showalter regime needs to go through the seams, needs to go and get some of the guys Mendoza likes, or have him consult with Stearns about it.
Yeah. Well, I agree to an extent. I'm not saying, get up and be like fire everybody right away, but I do think that we're reaching a point where it's pivotal for the Mets to make sure that they continue to make changes to better this team at the moment, while also being wary on both their short and long-term vision. We always knew the Mets were going to be in a position where they would be up and down throughout the season. We knew that, of course, if they even find themselves as buyers by the trade deadline, they're still going to probably be looming around a 500 ball club. We currently sit 4 games below 500 on May 15th. A lot of baseball still to be had and played. Doesn't change the fact that, yes, some changes should be made, and this is not a problem that has just started this season. This is a continuation of pretty much a year and a half now plus of baseball where it's been mediocre. And it's a lot of the same inconsistent issues on the offensive end where your core group isn't firing on all full cylinders together, or when they are, then the depth of your order isn't providing anything, or it's something else. It's unfortunately this constant battle of something not going right in Mets' favor. And AZ, I know you're not only a beauty, a longtime follower on the channel. Do you have any final remarks you got for me before I let you go?
Nothing else. Just hope some things need to change, and it needs to start from within.
I agree with you, my friend. Thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate AZ as always. Great caller here on the channel. He calls in almost every single time that we do our live callers. Now we got Emerson, Dylan, Brendan. You guys are up next. Emerson, do you hear me? Emerson's out of here because you're trying to be stupid. And this is what I will say I find good is that unfortunately we have had some hiccups in the past where if I bring live callers on that are viewers that I show video wise, they like to do stupid shit every time because I know people are attention whores, believe it or not. Color me surprised. So now we do just the live callers and we do it for that reason because people like to be stupid. So that was an easy kick on that one. Now let's get on to someone who I know will not be stupid. I know him pretty well, and that is Dylan. Dylan, how are you, my man?
Wardy, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. I could be better, but I'm going to say I'm doing fantastic like everyone else. What you got for me?
Listen, I'll start off with some positive things. I'll give Stearns the credit for piecing together a decent little rotation and a decent little pen in one offseason. I know the ERA looks solid. These guys walk too many batters. That's a huge issue with this bullpen and this rotation, but I must say, all things considered, they've actually been pretty darn good considering how they were just pieced together. Now, outside of that, we all have to admit that since the 2022 downfall to the Atlanta Braves, this offense has looked shook. The core has not looked the same ever since that point. And for the past going on 2 seasons now, McNeil, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, they're never clicking at the same time. It's one or two max for a month, then two of them go cold, or there's no cohesion here. I've seen a lot of bad Mets teams over the past 20 years that I've been watching, but this team is probably the most talented that I've seen during that stretch. They just miraculously can never click at the same time. I don't know what it is, but we've seen them get exposed since that Braves series of 22 when they called Alvarez up, who wasn't ready, just a side note. But yeah, we saw them shook. They don't have the grit of other teams in this city who would just fight and find ways to win. A la this Nick and Ranger team that we're watching right now. This team we saw a side of that team during that stretch in Atlanta and San Diego where they just looked shook. And I don't know. I didn't like what I saw then, and then it carried over in the last year. And we see it now with the new pieces that we have in this lineup. No stars, obviously, but little complementary pieces. They're not going to make a change. It's the same core. And this core is just, I don't know. I love the players, good spirited players with talent for sure, who are likely going to succeed if they get traded to other places. But together, I don't know what it is. I've seen them shook before, and they don't click at the same time.
Okay, and I think you hit the nail on the head with literally everything there. A lot of people in the live chat are like, great call. He knows exactly what he's talking about, and you're right. I mean, going back again to 2022, we're going all the way back to probably August 2022 is when things started to derail for the Mets. That's when they had a beautiful schedule in their favor. They were just above 500 at the end of that month. They didn't look great, especially heading into September and then postseason. You know, of course, you lose a series to Atlanta there in your final series of the year, and then you, of course, head in playoffs and get exposed by the Padres. My question to you, Dylan, before I let you go is, you're sitting here scratching your head wondering, you know, what should the move be? What should what should the result be out of this? What do you think the Mets should do? Is there anything specific that stands out of your mind? Do you want a specific player gone? Do you think that there should be a change in the coaching staff? Like, do you have anything more to expand on that outside of, I know that we have major problems right now. I just don't know how to fix it.
What's so tough about the situation is you can't get rid of everybody. You can't tear the whole thing down and be left with nothing. I mean, I think it's realistic that Alonso walks. Lindor we're going to be stuck with. I'm okay with that. I like a 30-30 shortstop. I like a guy who brings a platinum-level glove every year. I'm okay with that. Me personally, the only hitter that I'm confident in and like supporting day in and day out is Brandon Nimmo. I get it. He hits 220, but that on-base percentage truly is valuable out of that leadoff position. I think he brings a great glove, and I love his energy. I mean, I don't like how Jeff McNeil's been playing ever since the latter half of 2022. Since August of that year, he has been a shell of his former self, and he's only getting older. Obviously, he has a couple of years left on his contract. Don't see much value at the trade deadline this year in him, but I guess that peak for him will be this deadline because he is 32. So I don't think Pete stays. I would like for him to stay, even if it's in a role as just a pure power hitter where he squeezes into the middle of the lineup, but we'd have to add pieces, big pieces, a la Soto, etc., but that's not happening. So ideally, I think we're stuck with Lindor. I'm okay with that. I would like to keep Nimmo. I would like to get rid of McNeil. While I personally, Met bias, would like to keep Alonso, the writing's on the wall that he's going to be gone, and I think we're going to be okay. Beatty's okay. I'm okay with giving him time, getting the reps. I'm okay with getting Vientos the reps this year because, let's face it, everyone who's calling in all heartbroken that we're a few games under 500 after playing all these great teams, we expected this, did we not? We didn't build a team to win this year. Let the young guys get the reps this year. I think we're going to lose Alonso, like I said. I think it's okay to move on from McNeil now. He's only getting older, and it seems like his approach is changing. He's swinging out of his shoes on pitches 6 inches off the plate. I don't know why he strayed away from that slap hitter type of hitter that he's been throughout his career, but whatever. Marte, he's going to play out this contract here because that's just what it is. He's 35 years old. If there's a buyer from at the deadline,
he definitely gets traded before that contract ends. No doubt in my mind. Steve will eat that thing.
Give something to a 35-year-old outfielder with surgically repaired hamstrings and all this, that, and the other. Hey, of course, he has value. We saw with that arm, he still has it. He still has a great glove. He can still hit a little bit. So yeah, I'm cool with getting rid of him too. Obviously, right. The deal. And that's the whole core, right? I mean,
right? Yeah. I think that's all of it. So yeah, no, Dylan. Again, fantastic breakdown. I appreciate that. And next time we do live callers, we'd definitely like to have you come in here and talk more about them because definitely a level-headed fan who I think a lot of us fellow Mets fans can relate with on a great level there, especially in the year where, yes, while you might be frustrated with the play, the vision all along was to give reps to some of the younger kids, not only Vientos and Beatty, but also if they do get healthy in time and show strides, someone like a Drew Gilbert, maybe a Jet Williams before we get to the end of the season. Luis Angel Acuna, if he can, of course, hit, better contact-wise than what he's done in the AAA level so far, because the athleticism is all there with stealing bags and playing great defense. So I think the Mets do have internal options to still make this season not only entertaining, but still push to be buyers. But I also think that similar to Christian Scott being added to this rotation, it's going to be completely in hand with the youth movement and just hoping that some of these guys come in and make an immediate impact right away. Christian Scott has done that. That's great, but he's doing it in a year where he's on average to go 0-10 on the season with this sub 2.5 ERA because we're going to give him the DeGrom treatment. So we have bigger fish to fry on the offensive end than the pitching right now, but no less. Dylan, thank you for calling in, brother. I appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Shout out to Dylan for calling in. Now we got Brendan up next, and then we'll go from there. Again, guys, if you would like to call in to have your voice heard, I will be taking a couple more live callers here before we wrap up the show. And again, guys, when you join in to call the live show, you, of course, can call by clicking the link that is pinned in the live chat here on YouTube. And, of course, when you call in, make sure that, one, keep your camera on. That's greatly appreciated as well, even though I'm not going to show you physically on screen. I want to see who you guys are. And, two, make sure you have the same name that you have here on YouTube. That way I know who you are. 3, make sure you're being respectful. Don't act in a way that you want others to see or hear. And 4th, and most importantly, make sure that you guys have it concise what you want to say regarding the Mets right now. That way I can properly answer for you, and then we can get on to the next caller. Thank you so much for doing all that. To all my live viewers, I hope you guys have been enjoying tonight's segment. Again, this is more of a Mets event session, more of a Mets, call-in show than anything else in a season where, again, we're 4 games below 500. So let's get on now to our next live caller here, and that is going to be my man, Brendan. Brendan, how are you?
I'm doing good, Wardy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. What you got for me, my man?
Well, look, I've been an optimistic Mets fan for a while.
Right.
Right. And the core looks lost. And McNeil, same thing with McNeil. I don't know what is going on with him, but he is lost at the plate. And Narvaez, just get rid of him already.
Right.
Yeah. Just keep as a backup catcher.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything you want to add, or is that it? Just simple to the point.
No, and just keep Mendy. Keep Mendy as a manager. I can't even blame him one bit for this game, because this is his first year, and I'm already for me. I don't know if you can agree me on that, but I'm already liking his managing style and his energy and how he yells at his umpires for the bad calls. But yeah, I wouldn't get rid of Mendy. But then the coaching staff, I don't know, just get like an overhaul or something. Just maybe something like that. But something's got to change, because this is getting ridiculous at this point. And this team looks lifeless.
Yeah. They do. It's really unfortunate. And Brennan, I appreciate you taking the time and being patient to call in, my friend. So thank you very much for that. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Shout out to Brendan for calling in. And, he's just voicing what we're all saying here. We're frustrated with certain players on the roster. I am in agreement with Brendan, where some people may disagree. I don't want Carlos Mendoza to go anywhere right now. I know that we have every time I do my live shows, I see comments on replay, and even the live chat saying people fire Mendy, fire Mendy. Trust me when I say firing Carlos Mendoza right now is not going to have the reaction the way you think it is. And furthermore, it just continues the problem with the Mets, where they basically have a different manager every single year. You can't expect an offense to find some consistency if you just have this revolving door of these different guys coming in year after year after year, especially abruptly when you're only 4 games below 500 right now for a Mendoza, where there very much has always been this vision where he could be managing what is a losing season. That very much could be a reality for the Mets again, if they are more sellers than buyers by the trade deadline. So Carlos Mendoza is honestly the least of my concerns right now, but what is my concerns is the other things that we have pinpointed so far in the chat here and throughout the live show. But now let's get on now to our next live caller. That is going to be Triple Crown Media. Triple Crown, how you doing, brother? I'm doing good, my man. Your audio's turned off at the moment, so maybe turn that bad boy on for a second.
There we go. My bad.
No, you're good. What you got for me, brother?
So I just had a quick question real quick. Obviously it's a big factor, but given the fact that we've played so many close games within the past month, and we've been losing the majority of them, in the past and going forward, how big of a factor do you think these stolen bases are going to be? And do you think there's anything that we can do to fix it besides the obvious and just keeping Nito out there for as many reps as possible over Narvaez?
That's a great question, Triple Crown. Do you have anything else for me before I let you go? Because that's a good one.
That and just like, do you think there's truly anything wrong with the core, or do you think they just need to get things going? Like, I know they're all talented. Like, McNeil probably needs to go, but yeah, just about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you taking the time. Have a great one, okay?
Yep, you too.
Thank you. Okay, good question here. So let's start with the first one, which is, what should the Mets do there in regards to the stolen bases? Because this is an epidemic going on with the Mets right now. It's not only the walk rate. The Mets don't only have the highest walk rate in all Major League Baseball, but they also give up stolen bags more than any other team for the most part. Why is this? Well, one, unfortunately, the Mets have a lot of starters that do not have proper pickoff moves. That's one. That's a big bugaboo with this team. Some of them, including their relievers, have such a long lineup where by the time they even try to consider throwing at first, the runner's already at third base because they stole second as well somehow. They stole second, then got to third, I should say, rather. But a simple response to this is a couple things. One, it's the formula. It is what the Mets' approach has been so far this season, coaching-wise, has not been working, and they need to deviate from that. I know that they actively work every day to, of course, upgrade their game and make themselves better than what they were the day prior, but it's not an easy thing to have a quick turnaround, a drastic turnaround, one, in a 162 season when you're playing basically every single day, right? It's not easy. It's not like all these guys are having endless off days. And the coaching staff, it's anything but, right? You have to wonder if that would make an impact, if at all, if the coaching staff had, a couple off days, like, that no one was playing, obviously, during that time. But I digress. I'm getting on a tangent there. Point is that Francisco Alvarez, once he returns, is obviously going to be a positive impact on eliminating runners stealing. But let's also not forget that runners were stealing on Alvarez at a good clip early this season up until his injury. Alvarez was struggling to, of course, get those runners out at second. Even while he had perfect throws, unfortunately, those runners are having the best of him. So Alvarez returning is going to be a massive factor in the right direction and helps of that, because the one thing that Alvarez can do better than any other catcher for the Mets, which is many things, but a big thing defensively, is not only his pop time, but also his ability to throw to third base as quick as he can. The Mets have been absolutely screwed how many times so far this season, giving up stolen bases, not just at second base, but all the way there at third, when that should be a quicker turnaround for the catcher, and yet they're getting caught so many times. Caught in the sense of the catchers not getting the job done, and the runners still stealing that third base. So Francisco Alvarez is going to be key in regards to that for the most part, but beyond that, it's really the pitchers, of course, working on themselves too, and their pickoff move. Like, it takes two to tango here, and it's obnoxious that the Mets are far and away right now looking the worst in these respective categories, with the walks per nine, obviously, walk percentage, and the stolen bases they give up on a day by day. It's so bad to the point that you're literally even having teams that are not known for their base stealing ability running everyone and their mother against the Mets because they know it's the right formula to do. Because even if they don't have the fastest runners, what is this doing? It's throwing off the Mets. It's making them a little rattled, especially when they're just trying to get their game down, and a team that's been very inconsistent this season. So that's what I have to say on the stolen bases for the most part. But on the core group wise, yes, I don't even, truthfully, outside the fact that he's a veteran, I wouldn't consider McNeil a part of this core, because he's not. McNeil does not have the impact on this offense, and little on this team, the way that the other core players do. Brennan Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, they make a difference. Jeff McNeil does not make a difference, at least positively, nearly as often as those three guys can when they're right. You could even make the argument as well that Alvarez is part of the core now, because he is. Because Alvarez, when he is right, is a fantastic talent offensively and defensively with the big swing. We all know that. So to answer this, outside of McNeil going, it really is going to be, again, just the future core of this. I think with Jeff more than likely gone at some point, either during the season or by the offseason if possible, that'll probably be the biggest thing. And then the big question is the future of Pete Alonso. And this is a great question for all my live viewers and people watching a replay. Where do you currently stand with Pete Alonso? Now, I know it is easy to get fixated on the short-term downside of the Mets right now. But when you think about Pete Alonso as a whole, throughout his career and how he projects, do you want Pete Alonso to return to the Mets, this offseason on a big contract that's going to more than likely be an overpay, of course, being a Scott Boras client? This is the same Pete Alonso that turned down a 7-year, $158 million extension by the Mets. Prior to last year's trade deadline, Billy Epler gave him the extension offer. Pete politely declined. He said, you know what, I know I'm worth more than that in the market, and he absolutely is, regardless on if you guys agree or disagree there. Pete Alonso will more than likely be getting a bigger bag than what you saw with Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson. And yes, I know you might say, Wardy, how does that make any sense if he's not better than those players? You could argue it's all about market value. The same way that we have ridiculous prices in this country, it's just because of the markets, because of the inflation, right? The inflation is also happening in the free agent market, folks, especially when you have a big name guy coming off of a big market team, which that big market team has an interest in bringing him back with the Scott Boras client. That's what makes those things kind of difficult. But Pete Alonso, depending on the status of the Mets by the deadline, we all know the rumor mill is going to go bananas. But will the Mets go the lengths of really considering trading him? They will be listening, but they will only take a deal if it's simply one where they would be absolutely foolish not to accept, knowing that even if that means you burn the bridge with Alonso, where there's no chance you bring him back in for agency, that it's okay, because what your return is going to be is so much better for the team now and going forward for the years ahead. Only way to justify it, and I say that as someone who loves Pete Alonso and does not want to see him off this roster anytime soon. But now let's get on to the next callers that we have here in the live show. Let's see, we got our man Tyler Russell. We're going to have Tyler come up next. Going to be my man Eugene. Eugene, what you got for me, brother?
Hey, man. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How are you?
Good. Tired. A bit tired.
Same. Watching this Mets team will do that.
You know, McNeil was a batting champion not too long ago. I like McNeil a lot, and I was just wondering, like, what do you think's going on with him? I feel like he's a quality batter, and I a lot of Mets fans are like saying get rid of McNeil and whatever, but I think he probably is still a very capable batter.
Yeah, I mean, McNeil's a frustrating one, in my opinion, because if you look at how much he thrived just, over these past couple of years, of course, he had that breakout season that we saw in 2022 in the sense where he became batting champ and everything. But 3 of his past 4 seasons have been very underwhelming. In 2021, he had that hamstring injury, and it really wasn't the same for the most part. 2023, last season, struggled mightily as well. So he just hasn't been able to, unfortunately, get his game where he's wanted to be. And McNeil, there's something about the attitude that I think goes in hand with it. And I don't know exactly, to what degree, but we know that Jeff is someone who definitely is very hard on himself at times as a player, and is a guy that gets in his head pretty easily if he's going through, struggling ailments or just, isn't finding consistency with his game. And as a guy who's, bound to be a 300 hitter who instead has been, anything but, I think it's just the unfortunate reality that between his current swing mechanics, how he approaches the game, and how the game currently is not the same that it was even in 2022. Because for the Mets then, they're very much more of a slap hitting team, kind of, a bloop and a blast. That's what they built. So outside of Alonso and Lindor, they didn't have a lot of power, but that they were able to ride with that for a while because they were thriving on beating the shift. That's the main thing. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this in the past, Eugene, but once the Mets and the MLB as a whole got rid of the shift heading into last season, players were less incentivized to go opposite field. So Jeff, who would do great at poking the ball opposite field, down the third baseline or little bloops to left, always putting the ball in play, he went back to more of that pull hitter mindset in 2023, which is why it felt like he grounded out every single time to first base, because he was pulling the ball in hopes that there wouldn't be, that coverage there on the right side, when in reality, there was still enough in alignment for him not to be able to beat and get past to the outfield. So those are all factors that have went in hand with why McNeil has been the player that we've hoped that he would be. But ultimately, this is just one of those things where this is not 2019 anymore. We don't have juice baseballs, and the game is growing more and more to gap and a home run hitting that is being dependent on guys that can slap the ball, and he can't even slap the ball consistently. I mean, what we would do for a 300 Jeff McNeil right now, I mean, I would do plenty of things for.
Yeah, but I feel like he's striking out a lot too. Like he's not.
Yes, he is.
So
it doesn't even make sense. It really does. Yeah, his approach is just completely different. Like it's not what it used to be, and he's frustrated all the time. But Eugene, do you have any other remarks you got for me before I let you go?
No. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Have a great one. Okay. Let's go, Mets. Shout out to Eugene. Appreciate him calling in. Now we're going to get on to our next caller here, and then we will go from there. Give me 1 second. We're going to bring in my man, Scott. Scott, do you hear me?
Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, brother?
I'm not too bad. I'm down here in Florida, so it's really good to hear some New York local people
There you go.
amongst all the 80-year-olds down here. But so as a coach myself, tennis, baseball coach, um, it seems like the Mets players at bat don't really have any approach. Like it seems like our hitters or scouts should be scouting the pitchers like a lot better. And so they have a much better. So they just have more of a plan when they step up to the plate because it just looks like they're just stepping up into a batting cage, just taking swings without any preparation whatsoever. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the same consensus there, right? It's been frustrating. Can you expand a little bit more on that, honestly? Because I didn't the first part I heard you, but when you were getting on to finishing your sentence, it broke up. So can you just repeat for me?
Yeah. So like, I think as a hitting coach, it's so much more important, or as important, to scout the other team's pitchers so they can properly prepare them for the matchups they're going to have. It just doesn't look like our guys are prepared for the pitching matchups, and they're just up there just swinging and hoping to make contact. You know, a whole like they're basically praying instead of actually just trying to play.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, I think you're right there because it's true. If you look at one thing that we haven't noticed with the Mets for, a year and a half now is their inability to properly adjust. It feels like every time they properly adjust, it's too little too late in the ball game. And especially in how they've approached their offense this season, again, they have found a continuation of rallying by the time we get to the seventh inning and on, but that's because they just simply have no response for a competent starter. And the case of today against Ranger Suarez, who's a very good southpaw, has been killing it so far this season. The Mets were able to get early work on Ranger, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. Ranger Suarez only going 5 innings and 0 earned run. There was 2 unearned because of the error early on defensively for Philly. To get him out of the ball game in just 5 innings is a huge deal. And then to do nothing with it is an even bigger deal negatively. So yeah, I agree with you. There's something when it comes to either the coaching staff, their approach, where they're using as much information as possible, but you have to find the balance. And I think to this day, the Mets are still properly figuring out kind of what works and what doesn't. And this is more of a bigger problem that stems from them having zero analytics group when Steve Cohen bought the team. Obviously, they had a person or two in there, but not much. It's night and day currently from what it was back when the Wilpons were still owners. So, yeah, it's a fair question. The Mets do look lifeless out there a lot. And at times, it looks like they have no clue what they're kind of getting themselves ready for, if that makes sense.
no, that's exactly my point. They're just up there, like they're facing Joe Schmo starter, and there's just no, like you said, that was the first time I was aware that we have no analytics to actually help the batters break down pitches as far as like this guy is going to pound you here. So look for that right away. Like we don't have any of that going on right now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Scott. Any final words you got for me before I let you out of here?
No, just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, brother. Enjoy the nice weather there in Florida. Have a great one, okay?
You too, man. Great night.
Shout out to Scott. Appreciate the call-in. Now we're going to get on to our next one here. And RJ. RJ, you hear me, brother?
I do hear you. You hear me?
Yes, I do. What you got for me, my man?
Wow, haven't been on this ever. It's weird. Watching you for a long time. I'm from California, but I haven't been watching them lately because I've been busy with graduating from college and stuff.
Oh, congratulations with that.
Oh, thank you, dude. It means a lot. I kind of want to talk about like our third base situation, right?
Sure.
'Cause, like I wanted to know. I always forget we have Ronnie Mauricio, right? So when he comes back, do you see like we keep the intel in the case of that Alonso leaves and we have him at first, or because they want to plan it all for 2025? But I'm struggling to see what the motive is here because I feel like there's kind of like a lack of investment in some cases. I like the moves they make when things don't go right, but it's still I kind of fail to see how this can get better from the situation of losing 10-5 from the Phillies like that. You know what I mean? So I would like to hear your thought process on how like they plan to adjust around positional situations when we don't have someone like Marte, or what they're going to do with McNeil, and how they're going to address third base. And does the prospects like Luis Angel help Acuna help fit that, or anything like that? You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I can hit the nail on the head with all that. And good questions, and I appreciate you being a long-time viewer. It means a lot, my man. Thank you. So to answer the following, let's start with third base. So when I started the show today, I emphasized, because there were some key updates, how heading into tonight's game, Brett Beatty started taking reps at both second base and shortstop. Now, the reason why the Mets are doing this is because they don't have an internal utility option after DFAing Joey Wendell yesterday. And while Joey Wendell didn't provide anything, because he was both a negative offensive and defensive player while he was here in his short stint, the Mets are probably like, at this point, let's just give Beatty some reps in these other infield positions and go from there, because why not, right? So Beatty, his defense has been great at third base this season, a huge revelation, something that a lot of us didn't expect to be as good as it's been. But the bat, it's been very, very sporadic, and it's more often than not been more of the bat that's labored throughout last season, where he's been more of a singles hitter when he gets on, but he's struggled to lift and carry the ball. He had a big 2-home-run game against the Tampa Bay Rays a couple weeks ago, but outside that, it's been few and far in between on the offensive production for Brett Beatty. And he also had a little bit of a hamstring injury that I think goes in hand with it a bit, because he was playing good baseball leading into that point for the most part. But Beatty is going to be a guy that is going to get time at third base based on matchups with Vientos. They're pretty much platooning for the time being over the next week, and then the Mets will evaluate from there, because Vientos, even though defensively he has major hiccups, offensively he's more of a surefire thing. I mean, his first at bat today, he rips a two out a double off the lefty Ranger Suarez. There's not many Mets hitters that would have went into that at bat with those 2 outs and did what Vientos was able to do today. So just like the immediate power and the gap to gap protection is there with him, the way that there isn't with Beatty, and that's why they're intrigued by the prospect of having Vientos back up on the roster and giving him playing time at times where, say, JD Martinez is at DH, so Vientos will be at third, or maybe Vientos for the day that JD has the off day and they don't want to play DJ Stewart, they'll put Vientos in there. And speaking of DJ Stewart, he's one of these guys that may have a little bit more of a limited role now, but he's been great. He's basically the Mets Walmart version of Kyle Schwarber. Hits for a little over 200, but has a 800 plus OPS, because has a tremendous eye at the plate. Literally the best guy in getting on base, not named Brandon Nimmo right now, with how good he's been in that regard. Not great defensively in the corner outfields, but can be there if you need him to. He's a body, but more of a standalone DH and a nice option off the bench for the Mets in matchups too. Now getting on to the rest of the team. Jeff McNeil. Okay, if the Mets part ways with Jeff McNeil, which feels like when, not if at this point, whether that's this season or in the offseason, with the things are currently trending, they have a couple options. You brought up Ronnie Mauricio, and Mauricio, funny enough, was deemed by many people in the Mets clubhouse. I can tell you this personally, and I've said this many times on the channel, it's true. The Mets fully believed that Ronnie Mauricio would be their starting third baseman this season if he was healthy. That was the initial intention with him. So with him going down with that unfortunate tear in spring training, it threw a complete wrench into things with what David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza were initially envisioning. They want Mauricio again to have that position for him to lose and see how Beatty and Vientos do respectfully. So Mauricio isn't going to be back for a good stretch of time still. I really have him out on considering him for the season. If he returns before the season's end, that's awesome. Great. Maybe that could be a difference maker. But for the time being, Luis Angel Acuna has struggled to hit, above 200 for the most part in AAA. AAA can be fickle in the statistics, so bear that in mind. But the athleticism and the speed is there, something you don't get with McNeil. So I think just based on a spark alone and what they can provide for you by getting on base, by stealing bases, and of course by exemplifying great defense, that's where Luis Angel Acuna is certainly intriguing there. Then you have a guy like Jet Williams, the Mets' top prospect. He's been out with injury, but Williams is one of these guys that when he's healthy might just be the next thing for the Mets. They're at second base or somewhere in the infield, if not getting some reps in the outfield, because he's not only fast as heck, but he is a contact machine. He's basically the new Jeff McNeil. That's going to hit for 300 plus. It's going to have a north of 400 OBP. Struggles to go gap to gap because, again, he's not a big guy. He's like Jose Altuve size. Like the fact that this guy's the same size as me when I interviewed him a year ago says a lot, because I'm a short schmuck. But clearly he's doing something right on the baseball end. So Jet Williams is an option there internally as well. And then you have Drew Gilbert, Mets top outfield prospect, who could be cracking the bigs before the season ends, but he's been out with injury, so that's really set him back for the most part. And yeah, that's really kind of all the latest in regards to the roster configuration, what things could be changed at the moment, kind of what makes sense. The Mets did a lot of changes just over the past 24 hours with the team, headlined by DFA and Wendell, and now they're kind of just trying to see if these short-term fixes, patches, if you will, can make a difference for a team that's now spiraling, now 4 games below 500.
Yeah, I kind of get that, because I was a part of me was really happy to see Wendell kind of DFA, because when I saw him in LA and San Francisco when they came to California, he bobbled like, well, he didn't bobble, but he got like 2 errors. I can't feel like I was the jinx for that. But I've seen DJ Stewart and Lindor like hit homers every time I've seen him, so I can't be too mad about that. So, but I mean, I always like this team. I don't have a doubt in my mind that they'll get it together. I'm just really intrigued on this year's deadline because I love Alonso, and I don't think I'm ready to part ways with him. But I understand if there's a deal he can't refuse, and he might as well take it. But yeah, it's just one of my thoughts right now.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one, RJ. And again, I appreciate you calling in, brother. So you got any final remarks for me before I let you go?
Keep doing what you're doing, man. You'll have my view every time. I'll support you any way I can, man.
Oh, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. Congratulations again, my man. Have a great one, okay?
Of course. Be safe, man.
Shout out to RJ. Appreciate him calling in as always, everybody. And that is going to wrap up our live callers for the day. I want to thank everyone so much that took the time to call into the live shows. Greatly appreciated. Of course, in a typical, stream fashion, we had some schmucks that want a little bit more attention than what they got. But boo-hoo, they will move on to the next. And when I say that, I'm not referring to the people that unfortunately weren't able to get a call in today, but referring to the people, rather, that call in just to talk about something irrelevant from the Mets. But that's going to do it for your boy Wardy, everybody. Of course, the Mets lose a heartbreaker tonight by a final score of 10-5, and they look back to hopefully get back to winning ways as soon as tomorrow. And as I said in my pregame segment the other day, if it feels inevitable now. Taijuan Walker's on the bump for the Mets tomorrow. Not for the Mets, but against the Mets. I think the Mets beat up on Taijuan tomorrow, and I think that they salvage the series. And I think because they salvage the series, they're going to have us, of course, react the way that we've been, thinking, okay, this is a better deal than what it actually is, and the Mets hopefully can go back to being just three games below 500 tomorrow, because if not, you're 5 games below, tying your season worse, and then from there, could either get much better, could get much worse, or could continue to be this up down thing you call Mets baseball. But everybody, that's going to do it for the live show. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our live call-in vent session today. Always love taking live callers, and I cannot wait to take plenty more of your calls this season. So until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this, and this is your boy Wardy, signing out. Also, shout out my man Patrick Hennessy, co-host of the Bridging the Gap podcast. We'll be coming out with new pods in the near future, everybody. Just been doom and gloom Mets land, so not really much to emphasize there on the Mets side of things. But shout out to Pat, as always, for being a great member on the membership anniversary. Love you, Pat. Thank you guys again. And as always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out. Oh, one more thing. I'm so sorry, Dave. I'm a schmuck. All right, one more thing, everybody. One more thing. I'm sorry. Because I meant to say this past couple of days, and I'll do it again next time I wear something else that he gave me. But for those that don't know, Dave Kaplitz, a diehard member here on the channel, great friend of mine. Dave has hooked me up with a lot of awesome Mets goodies, including the following shirt that you guys see here. Look at this beautiful thing. We got the NYM, we got the Queens under. If only it came with wins, right, Dave? I mean, that would be the only thing better than that. But thank you so much, Dave, for the shirt. Really appreciate that. And I will see you guys all again tomorrow for a next